The M61 Vulcan is a hydraulically, electrically or pneumatically driven, 6-barrel, air-cooled, electrically fired Gatling-style rotary cannon that fires 20mm rounds at an extremely high rate. It isn't possible with the human eye to see a bullet as it leaves the muzzle of a gun, but in the case of the General Dynamics M61A 220mm rotary cannon, it isn't just a single bullet that can't be seen but literally hundreds each second. With a rate of fire that exceeds 6,600 rounds per minute, that is more than 100 rounds leaving the barrels each and every second. The key to this is the barrels, 6 of them, which are electrically driven, allowing for both the lightning-fast cyclic rate and in helping keep the barrels from overheating. This also increases multi-hit probabilities when compared to a single barrel. While this might seem like cutting-edge 21st century technology, the original M61 was developed after World War II by General Electric and first introduced in 1956, but the concept to utilize multiple barrels dates back a century earlier. It is based on the Gatling principle, which permits a high rate of fire while also reducing heat and barrel erosion. The M61 Vulcan is the deadliest weapon of Civil War era. The Gatling gun was invented in 1861 by Dr. Richard Gatling, a physician living in Indiana. Gatling allegedly created the gun under the naive assumption that making a single man, the Gatling gun operator, so lethal might cause wars to become obsolete. The gun saw very limited service in the Civil War, but was so influential in later designs it deserves a spot in this article. The Gatling gun was a .58 caliber, 6-barreled gun that worked by turning a hand crank that rotated the barrels. Each barrel would fire a single round before completing a single rotation, and the gun mechanism was fed by bullets in a gravity-fed hopper system. The result was the deadliest weapon invented to date. When working properly, the Gatling gun could fire 600 rounds a minute, the equivalent to 150 trained infantrymen. The basic rotating barrel principle is alive today in the modern Gatling gun, particularly the 20mm M61 Vulcan seen in the Phalanx CIWS shipboard defense system in the 7.62mm M134 minigun. The M61A 220mm is just the latest generation of the Civil War-era Gatling gun, developed by inventor John Gatling, who wasn't looking for a more effective killing machine. Rather, he developed his rapid-fire gun as a response to the carnage he witnessed during the American Civil War. Gatling saw how more soldiers died of disease than from gunshots and sought to develop a weapon that could supersede the need for large armies, and believed that deaths from the disease would be diminished. Technically, the Gatling gun wasn't a machine gun in the modern sense, as it was hand-cranked with each crank essentially firing a round and chambering the next one. In this way, it was more of a semi-automatic weapon, but one that had a very quick rate of fire, especially when compared to the muzzle-loading rifles of the year. The Gatling gun actually only saw limited use in the Civil War and wasn't officially used by the U.S. government until 1866, when it was used by the U.S. cavalry on the frontier until it was declared obsolete in 1911. One interesting side point is that during his time as president of the Gatling Gun Company, Richard Gatling developed a prototype with an electric motor that allowed his design to reach a rate of fire of nearly 3,000 rounds per minute. By comparison, the various Maxim gun designs that were used during the First World War, including the British Vickers and German MG08, had a rate of fire of just 550 to 600 rounds per minute. It took until 1946 for General Electric to be awarded the contract for Project Vulcan, which led to the development of the M61 20mm Vulcan. Since its introduction, this system has been used on a variety of fixed-wing aircraft, including beginning with the F-105D Thunderchief, while the latest M61A2, which is 20% lighter than the M61A1 version, remains in use on such aircraft as the F-22 and F.A-18. With the development of jet aircraft, engineers with the United States Army Air Force determined that a higher rate of fire would be necessary and determined that single-barrel revolver cannons would not be up to the task. Instead, designers at the Armament Division of General Electric considered the 19th century concept of utilizing multi-barrels instead. Gatling had actually developed a prototype of his gun in the early 20th century that was fitted with an electric motor replacing the hand crank, and it was able to reach a rate of fire of nearly 3,000 rounds per minute. However, the US military saw problems with the technology, and in truth, the concept was ahead of its time. General Electric took up Project Vulcan in 1946 to develop the 20mm rotary cannon that could be capable of firing 7,200 rounds per minute. The use of multiple barrels minimized barrel erosion and heat generation, which prolonged the weapon's life. In modern aircraft, the M61 was designed to be hydraulically driven and electrically primed. It was also developed to utilize a linkless ammunition feed system. Most aircraft versions of the M61 are hydraulically driven and electrically primed. The gun rotor, barrel assembly and ammunition feed system are rotated by a hydraulic drive motor through a system of flexible drive shafts. The round is fired by an electric priming system where an electric current from a firing lead passes through the firing pin to the primer as each round is rotated into the firing position. The self-powered version, the GAU-4, is gas-operated, tapping gun gas from 3 of the 6 barrels to operate the gun gas-driven mechanism. The self-powered Vulcan weighs about 10 pounds more than its electric counterpart, but requires no external power source to operate, except for an electric inertia starter to initiate gun rotation, allowing the first rounds to be chambered and fired. The initial M61 used linked ammunition, but the ejection of spent links created considerable problems. The original weapon was soon replaced by the M61A1, with a linkless feed system. Depending on the application, the feed system can be either single-ended or double-ended.